Hey, Quad Bros, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Glad you guys are here as always. I wanted to talk today about something that I've been kind of mulling around in my noggin for quite a while now, probably a year, if not longer. And it has to do with vehicles in Enlisted. Kind of specifically, this is coming from the standpoint of considering gray zone tanks. Right, we all know gray zone tanks. We don't like gray zone tanks. So I was thinking about, why do we have gray zone tanks and how do we solve gray zone tanks? So that's what we're going to be breaking down today. I hopefully will be able to describe what I see is the problem that results in gray zone tanks and offer up some solutions for gray zone tanks and how we might solve them. Now, I'm sure that the devs and the Enlisted helpers would love to see all of your guys' feedback down below. So make sure you guys are jumping in the comments and leaving some feedback about both my ideas and your own ideas, and whether or not you think vehicles in Enlisted are in a good spot, a bad spot, or what have you. It's always a good thing to do that and let the devs know what you guys are thinking, so then they can implement some changes of their own. So without anything else, let's jump into this. Starting off with the core issue and what I see with vehicles in Enlisted and the resultant gameplay that comes from this issue. So, in my opinion, the prime issue that I see with vehicles in Enlisted is that they are typically a higher value per spawn than an infantry squad. And what I mean by this is that while a tank doesn't capture an objective, and I know there's a bunch of people that are probably pinging me in Discord right now telling me, oh, vehicles are terrible, Quadro, blah, 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 blah. Well, yes and no. In my opinion, vehicles act as a force multiplier. So if you have a strong team with a strong vehicle player on it, you're going to be able to beat out a strong or even stronger team from your enemy if they don't have a vehicle player. This is because that an 88mm shell or HVARs or 250 kg bombs can just do so much damage so quickly, and no infantry squad can possibly put up that much damage that quickly, right? And as a result, vehicles are very powerful, right? And they can be very frustrating. And we get a problem where the vehicle squads in Enlisted are treated the exact same as infantry squads. Right? There's no limit to the amount that you can spawn other than, 2 tanks, one fighter, 1 bomber. There's no downside to dying. You can just constantly spawn these things in over and over again. There's no restrictions to them, right? You just get to keep spawning them over and over again. If a player really wanted to, and I've done this, you could just cycle 3 tank squads for an entire match and never once have to spawn as infantry. And so vehicles as a whole have to be kind of weak. Right? We have to have vehicles be fairly weak because they're just so common, right? Vehicles in Enlisted are typically fairly easy to destroy, right? Anybody can have an explosive pack running around. Anti-tank is just super, super plentiful in the game because every single squad can have an anti-tank soldier in it with a powerful anti-tank weapon that is very easy to use and will instantly nuke basically everything, right? And it's, again, because vehicles are just so common, right? If they were, because of how common, if we didn't have access to these anti-tank weapons and they weren't as easy to destroy, the game would be broken, right? It would be horrible. Vehicles would dominate the match. And what our end result is that we have common anti-tank, common tanks, and so what do the tanks do? They sit in the back of the map. They sit in the gray zone where the anti-tank weapons are significantly less effective against them, right? Because they don't want to die. And so they're not really helping their team, typically. They're just sitting in the back. It's frustrating because I get killed by something that I can't fight back against unless I get my own vehicle. Or we have planes that just end up suicide bombing, right? They just turn into this weird 1945 cruise missile that crashes full speed into the ground, which isn't very thematic, unless you're playing in Japanese, of course. And on the flip side, for the other team, if you do blow up that vehicle, if you do take out that plane or the tank, it's kind of a hollow victory. It kind of sucks. Like, yeah, I killed that tiger, and then you see another one rolling up the hill because someone else just spawned it. And I think the merge is actually going to amplify this problem, and no one's really talking about that. At the risk of going off on a tangent right here, this isn't something people are talking about. People are talking about the merge and all the issues that they think are going to happen. Nobody's mentioning vehicles. I think vehicles are going to be a massive problem in the merge, guys. Like, I think vehicles are going to be actually unplayable. They're going to be either, in my opinion, unplayable or just absolutely awful to deal with. Because you're either going to have a situation where you're going to instantly die because everyone has an anti-tank weapon, or you're going to have a situation where if you do manage to blow up a gray zone tiger, you're going to have another 2 king tigers spawn in its place, and you're just never going to be able to kill them because everyone's going to be high rank and everyone's going to have all this crazy shit and instantly blow it up. Right now, like, if I load into a game with my 76 Sherman, like, it's probably only 2 people in the enemy team that are going to be able to kill me, right, with their weapons. In the merge, dude, all 10 people are going to have a fucking Panzerfaust, or like 8 people are going to have a Panzerfaust. It's going to be awful, okay? Sorry, tangent over, but that's going to be a serious problem. So, devs, if you see this, you guys need to listen to that. That, in my opinion, is going to be a problem. Anyway, moving on to solutions to the gray zone tanks. So one interesting change that I would like to see in a test server sometime is to have tanks act as actual multipliers, right? I mentioned that they're force multipliers. I'd like to see that actually implemented into the game for objectives. So while a tank alone wouldn't be able to capture an objective, it'll double the amount of friendly soldiers on the point. So say you're defending an objective and you have 2 friendlies on that objective and a tiger. Well, now it counts as you having 4, right, soldiers on that objective. If you're attacking the objective and you have 2 soldiers on it and the enemy has, say, 3, and you have a tank, well, now you have 4 soldiers on that objective and you're capping it because your vehicle doubles the amount of soldiers. It's kind of like a breakthrough type situation, which is what tanks are designed for, right? That's what they're used for. They're there for breaking through an objective and destroying fortified positions. So I'd like the idea of, if you get your tank onto the point, then everyone around you counts more. Really, like they got to take that out because it's a huge breakthrough. I think that'd be interesting. I think it encourages tankers to be aggressive. I think, encourages you to actively push towards the objective instead of just kind of sitting in the back of the map doing nothing, right? Shelling the objective from far away where you're not really going to help your team a whole lot. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. I think it gives tankers a reason to push up as opposed to just sitting in the back. Now, what I think is the actual, one of the better solutions, and something that should happen, in my opinion, it might happen, is some sort of system that somehow restricts vehicle spawns. So this can just be like a cooldown that applies to all vehicles after you've lost one. So like if your first vehicle spawn, you can just spawn, but if you lose that vehicle, okay, you got to wait a minute. You lose that vehicle, okay, now you got to wait 2 minutes. Okay, now 3 minutes. Okay, 4 minutes, right? As you spawn more vehicles, it takes longer for those losses to be replenished on a per player basis, right? So if you have one guy wasting tanks, that doesn't affect the whole team. It just affects that guy. But more so, what I think is a better system is actually a little bit more complicated, but it was what was used in the April Fool's Mech event. For those of you that missed that event, the idea was that you would need to gain a certain amount of score before you were able to spawn a vehicle. And for each additional vehicle that you tried to spawn after that, it would require a higher score. Now, I think this system is the best way to go since it has the added value of also being like a lever that Darkflow is able to pull to balance different vehicles in the game. And what I mean by that is like Darkflow can change the initial spawn requirement score before you can call in that vehicle to reflect its power. So like a T-3485 might be able to be spawned from the start, but a King Tiger might require you to say like gain a 1,000 score before you could call it in, right? And if you lose that one, it's going to be harder to replace it and you're going to need to get to that higher score before you can spawn it in. This makes destroying those bear tanks a lot more rewarding because if you destroy that vehicle, you shoot down that plane, well, it doesn't come back immediately. That player can't spawn that again, right? They have to wait till they get that higher score, and vehicles wouldn't, account for that score as well, so you can't chain vehicle spawns together. It also has the resulting effect of, like, the match feeling like it actually would progress because you could make it to where, like, medium tanks cost, like, 500, light tanks you could spawn from the beginning, heavy tanks cost, like, 1,000. So, like, early game, we got, like, some Stuarts, maybe a Puma, right? Maybe you want to bring a Chaffee, right? These kind of lighter vehicles that don't really see a whole lot of play in the current Enlisted. And then the middle game, we get, like, Shermans, we get mediums. And then late game, we get the Tigers, we get the King Tigers, we get the IS-2s, we get the Pershings, right? It feels like, the game is ramping up as the match goes on. I think that's kind of interesting. And it's just more interesting than our current system, which is kind of just a race to the top, right? Why would I bring a Panzer IV when I can bring a Tiger, right? There's really not one. And yes, I know that the merge is going to kind of change things. and that isn't necessarily going to be the case once the merge comes. So keep that in mind as well. But those are my solutions, guys. Those are my propositions. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, right? There's a lot of options, I think, for balancing this stuff out. I think there's a lot of changes that can be done to kind of balance this stuff. Do you guys think Darkflow is going to do this? Do you guys think Darkflow even should do this? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, remember to like and subscribe for more videos and more Enlisted content. But without anything else, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take it easy.